Alrighty. Um, yeah, I got caught up in stuff for a while, so I decided, you know what? I'll read you a bedtime story at noon 30 because I really want to finish this book, and that way I can show that I did it, and you guys can show that you read it as well. Um, but nice thing, um, first of all, I have made eggplant parmesan for the first time ever. That actually turned out really well. I'm going to make another one tonight. And second thing was yesterday I got to go out to see Lota with my nephew and one of my friends. So that was quite a lovely experience. I'm very happy about that. So we've got just under 50 pages left. So let's see how much we can get done in one too. The partnered ship. Hurtling from space at speeds no unprotected human could tolerate, Helva contemplated the delightful knowledge that she had paid off her indebtedness to Central World's game-drawn ship service. She was her own mistress, free, and free to choose, at long last, a partner, a brawn, a mobile human, to companion her wherever she chose to wander. She was no longer limited to those sterling souls, fresh and eager from academy training, fully indoctrinated in Central World ether, conditioned to a set way of thinking and acting, molded according to predetermined physical, intellectual, spiritual, psychological prerequisites, and not what she had in mind. She could take anyone now. She could. Well, now come to think of it, she couldn't. Bronze, for all their shortcomings, were not ordinary technicians cranked out by the thousands from specialist programs on other planets. They were especially trained and educated to function in an unusual partnership. She could not pick out an agreeable personality and find him deadheading on that planet. Even on short contracts with an industrial planetary agency, she'd have to rely, to a certain degree, on brawn with sense, integrity, and a certain breadth of education, or she'd get royally rooked, industrially and systematically. And besides, she wanted a permanent partner, not another transient. She wanted companionship, an intelligent, sympathetic friend, not a passive employee. Another factor limited her field further. Many otherwise well-adjusted citizens of a complex, civilized galaxy were revolted or superstitiously terrified at the thought of a human being entombed in a bulkhead, connected to the operational circuitry of a powerful spaceship. The neurosis could even extend to personalities like Perron, who deluded themselves that a shell person was really not human, but was actually a highly sophisticated computer. Very few people she had met, Helva admitted sadly, thought of her as Helva, a person, a thinking, feeling, irrational, intelligent, eminently human being. Jenin had. Theoda, except for that one brief instance of rapport, had been too immersed in her lifelong exploration to entertain a personal reaction to Helva, the human. And although Kira Nova had been with her over 3 years, neither of them had let the friendship develop into a deep attachment. In fact, the only mobile human who appeared to regard Helva as Helva was Niall Pararon, and for all Helva knew, he had merely developed an effective way of handling his BB ship subordinates by alternately praising and insulting them in that highly personal stimulating way. And for the record, I'm going to write some people up the wall for the rest of the chapter. I know that it's probably supposed to be pronounced Neil because Anne McCaffrey is Irish, but one of my counterparts from a different company goes by Niall. So to bring that little bit of personal aspect in, I'm going to be mispronouncing it the entire time because I like how he said it. No, anyway. And yet, he had stayed on the kite beam for 3 days, nursing a tenuous trace of her whereabouts. He could just as easily have delegated the duty to a regular comm man. That he hadn't done so absolved him of her previous grievances. She hoped someone had discovered him asleep at the control panel. He must have been in a deep, uncomfortable position to snore that way. Helva chuckled to herself. Too bad he wasn't bigger, he'd have made a good brawn. And yet, he was passed over, while someone like that nardy idiot Perron, tall, brawny enough to look at, not only got under training, but completed the rigorous course. He must have done it, as Niall had acidly suggested, on theory credits. perhaps Central World had better reevaluate their image requirements as a result of the Borealis fiasco. What heavy worlders like Paragon lacked in stature were made up in mass and irrepressibleness. Horrible, Helva said in an unaccustomed profanity. The word echoed satisfactorily through the empty cabin. I wonder if you stayed awake long enough to record my divorce. She didn't like to contemplate Miles' remarks and ambition Paragon. She could practically hear his rasping voice reminding her that he'd tried to talk her out of Paragon. For a smart chick, you're a dumb broad. Well, it hadn't been a complete disaster. She just had that to counter Paragon's scorn. In fact, if Paragon hadn't been such an irritating dolt, when that Zyklon creature would never have gotten into the main cabin, she and Paragon wouldn't have been overwhelmed, and she wouldn't have made enough in bonuses and rewards to pay off so soon. That was such a comforting thought, to accomplish payoff so early in her career, to reach the goal all BD ships dreamed of. So now what? She needed a brawn, one of her exceeding careful choice, and she needed another goal, a point, a destination. Maybe one would supply the other, or vice versa. I could go to the Horsehead Nebula, she said, aloud for the sound of it. And the sound triggered a carefully suppressed memory. Denon, leaning against the console, grinning at her, his eyes alight with affection and humor. If they ever take us off the milk run, we'll make a stab at the nebula, huh? She was off the milk run, but Denon lay dead in regular space cemeteries, all their wild, happy schemes entombed with him. The challenge of such a flight unaccompanied was as empty as her ship self. The Horsehead Nebula indeed, the diverted train of thought. She ran a rapid calculation. Oh, she could make it for all her present material dependence on man. Her pile was fresh, though she wished someone would rattle a few brains and develop an energy source that would utilize the full potential of the FTL principle. It's like having two high gears in a powerful ground car that couldn't be used because they burn up all the available fuel in a few milliseconds. As it was, she could reach the Horsehead in 100 standard years at her present top speed. And then what? You needed someone to celebrate a victory with, to extol a notable achievement, or any triumph was empty. If there was no goad to progress, advance was sterile. You needed a goal, or there was no point in anything. Now, Helva could understand why older class ships suddenly opted out for no discernible reason, and she wondered why payoff had seemed so enviable a state. Here she was, and where was she? Shell people like Amon and Creel, so determined to get here, would never believe that it was the act of paying off that really mattered. The ship-to-ship band bleaked through her gleaming reflection. Helva, this is 422. Sylvia! From you, I'll accept the man. Rumor is that you've reached payoff. Well, according to what computations I have. What's the matter with you, then? That's not the end of the world, it's the beginning. Of what? Oh, say, that Borealis sense deprivation hit you hard. Oh, not really, I'm alright, I just don't like solitude. You don't appreciate being well off, Sylvia went on in a cynical way. I'd have thought you'd be glad to be rid of that asinine Charon. You remind me so much of that half-load. Well, never mind him. Helva, you're going to have to watch your step. You've paid off in less than 10 standard years. That's too soon. Much too soon for Central World to be willing to let you off the hook. I'm not so sure I'm off, Helva replied. What do you mean? Listen. And Sylvia's voice sounded fierce. If there's any funny taping on you, you calling the mutant monitors or the Society for Preservation of the Rights of Intelligent Minorities, that'd be Anakin and Rocco on Regulus. That should be that bad. Anakin scrim and got the fancy uniform, but it's Rocco who has the brains. You get them in on any discussions. Demand a recalculation of all costs on the day they shall be out of the cradle. Sylvia, there's not going to be any trouble about the payoff figures. I'm sure of it. Well, then what's the problem? What do I do now? Sylvia spluttered for a moment. Don't you realize? She demanded angrily. That industrial complexes, not to mention planetary unions, will pay you any figure you name. For any time you'll spare them, of course you'd have to watch yourself with private industry. They play dirty. Before you touch down at Regulus, you call Brody. A city shell person always knows who's ready to bid and who you can trust. Particularly Brody. He'll get you a good contract. And a good brawn? Are you on that wheeze again, Helva? Sylvia was disgusted. Change around. Grab the kind of technician you need on assignment, then drop him. I'd have thought you'd have quite enough bronze for a while. Well, quite enough bronze, yes. I just want one who'll stay a while. Ah, family John. If only converts no energy and has no credit. You don't seem to realize, however, you're a top BB ship. You'll have bronze begging to board you. Take your pick. Sure, you and Venom made a fine team. His death was a piece of rotten luck. Instead, a piece of rotten duck. But he is dead. Let him rest in peace. Find yourself another guy, someone up to his caliber. Not another blunt-brained bastard like the one you shouted off with the jack. Halvor was startled that Sylvia had already heard about that. And, if you've got to have a partner, grab one young, train him up right. The Academy ruined more than it improved. You ought to know by now what you don't want in a partner. Teach him what he ought to know. Don't wait for the impossible, engineer it. And look out for Riley's conniving. He's going to try to keep you on the roster, or I haven't been around this service for 400 years. Why have you been around 400 years, Sylvia? There was such a long silence, Helva wondered if they'd gone out of contact range. I don't ask myself that anymore, Helva. I used to when I was your age, in Chaos Team first. Then we ran afoul of a meteor swarm of Sadosland, and, well, there's usually something interesting to do for Central Village. I've had good partners and bad ones too. Her voice wavered to form a deep attenuation. Be careful, Helva, and don't sell yourself cheap. The context broke then, but the comfort of Sylvia's astringent concern overshadowed the substance of her warning for a time. To reassure herself, Helva ran through the computations again, starting with the fearful depth on her early infancy and childhood. The pituitary adjustments so that her body would not outgrow and adjust her capture, and the delicate brain surgery that made Helva, the ship, had been, as always, expensive. However, there could be no slaves nor indentured servants within Central World's autonomy. Committees and organizations of dedicated citizens decreed that a salary scale, a bonus and award system should provide incentive and I've always pronounced that word wrong. Remuneration. I'm going to mispronounce it because I can't think of the other way. Remuneration for shell people in every occupation. Ha! Now Helva could see that the subtle, massive conditioning that she had received in her formative years was double-edged. It made her happy as a shell person. It had dedicated her life to her service, and it made payoff a mockery. What else could a BD ship do but continue as she had started in service? The same must apply to shell people trained to manage ships, mining plants, or industrial complexes. And yet there was compensation. The memory of Drennan rose to plague her again, to plague and to console. Those had been marvelous years, short but full of a glowing wonder of self-discovery and joyous exploration. They had been eager for the challenge for each new mission, to be faced together. They had taken a perverse pride of her to be faced. That's all I had. And Drennan had to defend them both against the ridicule of other Brahm until the Juliet Hotel 824 had been admired and respected as the ship who sang. Drennan had been unique. But surely there would be another man with other qualities to recommend him. She wondered if she had unconsciously chosen Teron because he had been the antithesis of her first man. Well, Sylvia was right. She ought to find a reasonable compromise. Train him up proper as a proper Brahm. Train him up to consider her a person, not a ship, nor an emotionally responsive computer. She was paid off. She could take time to look around, to let Broly find a reliable, independent contract. Idly, she wondered how long it had taken the Foxtrot Golf 602 to contract with the Second Confederacy. He'd paid off just before her birth. She'd met him once with Jennings, but both he and his partner had affected an amused, detached superciliousness, or superciliousness that had been offensive. Clearly I need a break. I have fructose corn syrup brought to you by a brand that I am going to try and cover up with my life. I won't tell you what it is because I don't feel like giving them free advertisements, but I will say that there is an orange soda brand that has recently put out peach flavored on its pipe. She could, she supposed, broadcast an advertisement right now. She began to feel better. Actually, that's what she needed. But perhaps it would be smarter to report to regular face, make sure all was in order. It was only sensible to keep on good terms with Central World. She'd need their technicians and maintenance shreds for any overhaul. She found that she had slowed somewhat and added trust, confidently speeding back to regular. She began to cast up a list of qualities that she wanted in a partner, and the first to avoid. So pleasant were her meditations that it seemed no time at all before she had to request landing instructions from CENTCOM. Why, Helva, as I live and breathe, now Paralon answered her. Catch up on your beauty sleep? Both. Both? Caught up with beauty and with sleep. She didn't mind you snoring? They were too exhausted to hear, and much too grateful to comment, my gal. I'm not your gal. The endearment is considered an accolade by many. How do you manage that delusion? Niall chuckled maliciously. But I pick my partners carefully, not just the symmetry of their features and the density of their skulls. Alright, Paralon, you've counted 2. By the way, I trust you stayed awake long enough to register Tan's official. Oh, yes, and took even greater pleasure in posting the penalty to your account. I can afford it. I know. And there was an unexpected grimness in his voice. Put your lazy tail down on pad 3, administrative landing. An official welcoming committee has been waiting for you. You mean an emancipation delegation? CENTCOM was silent. Well, she got off lightly at Paralon's hand. She'd missed him. His caustic manner had been stimulating, and, whatever his motives, he had been there at the end of the tight beam. Independence would have its own complications, wouldn't it? As she jockeyed with finicky precision on pad 3, she experienced another jolt of uncertainty. Every conscious hour of the last 10 years had been devoted to Central World. She had belonged to that service, and had not been aware of her indebtedness to them. Well, she was just going to have to make some drastic reorientation in her thinking. Change was necessary to growth and maturity. She was about to send a peremptory signal to CENTCOM to get them to move on, when she saw the group emerging from the base tower. Now Paralon was dwarfed by 3 other tall men. She recorded the burly figure of Chief Riley, sitting and due her achievement. The other 2 men she identified as Commander Brenslaw of Engineering and Admiral Doberon of Xeno Relations. This wasn't a standard graduation lineup. Sylvia might be right about CENTCOM not letting her off the hook. She ought to have called Double M or Spring or Burley. She could hardly block off now. She'd fried a quartet of notables. So she'd lowered the passenger lift and cannily tuned up her audio unit. However, not one of the visitors made any comment until they reached the lock. Then they only played the presidency theme. However, after now Paralon had politely ushered the chief from the lift, he stared at Helva's column with definitively possessive air. As he stepped into the lock and tossed off the customary salute, it was as if he had proclaimed her his exclusive property. His audacity staggered her. It wasn't Riley who must guard against, it was that meter-sized, heavy-wheeled Machiavelli Paralon. Daperdon noticed his supervisor's salute. Gentlemen, our manners, and bringing his boot heels smartly together, he accorded her the proper ceremony. Service had such archaic traditions how them knew, like saluting a ship on boarding, or did they salute her as a ranking officer? Probably not. Salutes between persons had to be reciprocal. She'd trained her brain to salute. Careful. She'd trained her new brawn to salute. Sentimental about the service, and our profound gratitude to Elda, Chief Riley was saying, holding his own salute, and over long moments, your superb courage and resourcefulness at Borealis are already service legends, a triumph of mind over immobility. We're proud, and very proud to have had you on our roster. Elva caught the past tense and wondered again at Caroline's attitude. You know Dobronon of Zuno and Brugslav Engineering, of course, the Chief went on, so smoothly passing by the adroit admission that Helga wondered if he had heard aright, and why these two were here if she knew by tacit admission and why were these two here if she were by tacit admission and independent? Yes, we met, she admitted, so dryly that she suffered. He gestured to the others to take seats. His deference of moments before giving way to the next order of business. Elva scanned the delegation warily. Caroline gave her a quick sideways grin before he settled himself on the couch, one arm draped negligently across the back. As if he meant to stay a while, Elva thought sourly. I don't know if the directive reached you in transit, Helva, the Chief said, but those audiovisual modifications you suggested are going to be built into every new show. Never again will one of our people have to suffer sense deprivation. Can't imagine why such a contingency wasn't provided for long ago. Bremslaw cleared his throat and pulled to his left ear, managing to not look at anyone as he replied, units exist in prematuring cells, rather, and used to be transferred at final encapsulation of the ship-designated personnel until the 4th class. In that century, modifications to the NSL were made direct linkage to the ship's facilities, and seemed to make an auxiliary system redundant. Riley frowned. Sometimes these apparent archaic traditions passed along in service do have their place in our modern context. Unfortunately, the cell people kidnapped by Zukon were all over the local passes. Yes, indeed, that was unfortunate, but in your case, Helva, the Chief went on briskly, there will be no charge for the modification. That puts you right close to payload. He held up his hand, smiling benignly at Helva started to interrupt. Probably over and spare. I think there's no question that you'll get your full finder's fee and the reward for the apprehension of federal offenders. That comes in from Central Bureau of the Federation. Riley had taken pacing the length of the cabin. Helva couldn't decide if he had a guilty conscience or was gathering some mental takeoff speed. In either case, it augured ill for her. Therefore, Helva, regular face must consider you a free agent. He announced in stentorous tones, smiling again to contradict the apparent reluctance. We're proud of your record, Helva, very proud. He dropped his voice to a confidential aside. All spacecraft to the contrary, we wish all BD ships could perform at such efficiency and remove themselves from our fiscal autonomy. It'd be quite an achievement to run the service in the black. However, pending the confirmation of those rules, regular face is required to be unavailable during the assignment of any duration. And you had one in mind for me. Yes, we did have one in mind, Riley admitted, with twinkling eyes and a paternal smile. He glanced expectantly toward Caroline. Rather pointless to waste your valuable time, Chief, discussing it then, isn't it? Helva asked, just as Caroline got to her feet. Why, I don't think the Chief would ever consider you a waste of his time, Helva, Caroline said, his eyes mocking, challengingly. Of course, if you've made any other plans on the way back from Borealis, was real courteous of you to check in here and say goodbye. He turned on his heel and started purposefully toward the locker. Drop in again sometime. Just a minute, Paralon, Riley said. The chief managed to control her expression, but Bresswell looked close to panic, and D'Artagnan's smile had frozen in her eyes. However, whatever they'd had in mind for her must be mighty big. He didn't trust any ploy of Paralon's, but these other two men were keen, solid, and honorable specialists. It wouldn't hurt to listen. Paralon got to the lock, turned to give her a hearty wave. Paralon! He halted, hand on the left rail, his face expressing only polite attention. He wasn't giving anything away. What have you cooked up, Paralon? I cooked up nothing! Helva ignored D'Artagnan's startled exclamation. We had, Paralon admitted after a glance at the chief, discussed another assignment for the Tango Hotel AP4 after that spectacular drug run. Naturally, that mission had been aborted due to circumstances beyond our control. Helva chuckled to herself. He hadn't let her off lightly on that matter of plan after all. He'd needle her for the next 25 years for that mistake. As a matter of purely academic interest, until those rewards are placed into me, would you deign to discuss this aborted mission? No harm in discussing it, certainly, he agreed as he sauntered back into the cabin. While we wait for confirmation from the Federation, he settled his wiry body into a comfortable position before he continued. It had originally been planned to assign the Tango Hotel AP4 to the projected Beta Corvi mission. Beta Corvi? Carlos pressed the flicker of the line. Then she laughed at it loud. Terrano Action in the Corviki shell, coping with the environment? Now regarded her sardonically for a moment. You yourself made the point that Answer Tolma, a true egocentric, single-minded, stubborn, and pragmatic as hell, suffered the least personality trauma from the phenomena of the Corviki transfer. Taran was so well endowed with the same sterling attributes that it was obvious he'd not last a minute as a personality on Beta Corvée, and you know it, Maya Paralon. That man was incapable of coping with any such anomalies. Paralon's tactics infuriated her. Why, what he suggested was nothing short of bald murder. He talked Riley into the scheme. They both wanted to get rid of Paralon. Now really, Helva, Riley said, stepping forward as if separating two antagonists. I was never in favor of Terran of Ubron, and if you'll forgive the reminder, you were right, Chief, Helva said in so sweet and controlled a tone that Paralon slowly raised his breath. And sorry to be, I assure you, however, no harm appears to have resulted. Except that Helva is now a free agent, Paralon said in a completely expressionless voice. Exactly, Riley continued with an unexpected enthusiasm. And unless Helva has other plans in mind, perhaps we can all make to see the advantage of undertaking this new mission in spite of her changed status. There was an odd half-smile on Paralon's face as he returned his chief's intense stare. Yes, perhaps we can, the supervisor said with a hearty laugh of enthusiasm. Helva saw D'Artagnan give him a critical look, and Brevois was plainly startled. Something was going amiss with their sales pitch. Well then, Helva, Riley started off determinedly. Have you any plans in mind? You'd had no time to advertise, Niall said abruptly. She'd made their planetary calls on the return trip here, and I doubt that even the most assiduous of our known informers had time to discover that the Easter Hotel HP4 has been paid off, so railing and carrying with early in service. I'll answer for myself, thank you, Caroline. The others were staring at their colleague with blank astonishment. The atmosphere in the cabin had become strained. Helva was at a loss to figure out why Paralon was deliberately disrupting the mood Riley was attempting to create. Just couldn't have no clear motive, but what? So, my enterprising supervisor planned to have me go back to Beta Corvo. That somewhat explained Admiral Dobrano's presence, and you, Commander Breslaw, or his engineering bidding against Dino for my services. We were hoping to combine forces, Doberman answered after an uncomfortable pause. I got my words in my head. It seemed appropriate, Breslaw said, breaking the silence, that you should be the first ship to benefit from the discoveries resulting from the data that you brought back. If anyone had used the stabilizing key for unstable isotopes, just how would I be benefited? Eva asked casually. He kept one eye on Padawan. He was adept at titillation. He wouldn't put it past him to have staged the whole thing, including his own apparent disinterest, to arouse her to indiscretion. Of course he wanted to improve FTL drive. Well, when we began to study the basic theory, Breslaw was saying, we could see an immediate application to our present FTL system. We are fully aware, however, that the potential for the FTL principle is vastly beyond our present performance. The problem has been an energy source that could tolerate the demand full FTL speed required. The Corviti data makes intergalactic travel possible in this decade, this year. Intergalactic travel? How does excitement match Breslaw? Between which galaxies? This one and the Horsehead Nebula? Yes, intergalactic distances traversed in a fraction of present estimates, Riley said, as if he sensed that they had her attention. Imagine it, however. Unlimited power. Literally, inexhaustible power. To take you to the edge of the galaxy visible from the rim of the Milky Way, beyond any space now known to man. Riley spoke urgently, firing her desire. Power to make those FTL drive components work efficiently, for the first time since they were designed. All these last have been a constant fuel source to stand up to the draining of the energy required, and you have the chance to explore unknown space. You can chart new star systems, open up whole galaxies of central worlds. That commander got her out of those shadows. Interesting. Very interesting. The FTL always has been a case for having a good card and no draft animal strong enough. However, if this radical new development stems from Corviti data, why is another mission necessary? Riley gestured to Breslaw, who began whipping out key graphs and cube tapes, which he arranged nervously on her console. With the Corviti data for stabilizing unstable isotopes, we were able to make use of that form of waste energy, not just for the fraction of seconds of half-life before the AMUs deteriorated, but for as long as that power was needed. Imagine it, however, said Breslaw's eyes glowed with wonder. The power of an exploding star, always equal to that of an exploding star at its highest energy level. The cabin seemed to beckon her view. With an exploding star operating at its highest energy level, Ravelstein, that had burned Venom to death as she had frantically tried to outrun this fantastic energy, but perhaps that power enslaved to her requirements. Oh, she had to have it. An inner nova to execute the time of the outer Hammurabi justice at its purest. She forced herself to listen to Breslaw's explanation. Admittedly, however, there are tremendous subtleties involved which I have obligated to confess no one in my team is scientifically sophisticated enough to appreciate. It's almost as if the Corvair were discussing personal intimacies rather than subparticular facts. But the result is a fantastic discipline of nucleonic forces. As you'll notice, however, and he pointed to the first cube and tapped the equations into the ship's computer, the isotopes are permitted to radiate energy in cycles, but instead of decrease in the energy available as the deterioration occurs, the energy level remains constant. By varying the number of cycles initiated per second, or milliseconds for that matter, and Breslaw being with paternal fondness for the abilities of this development, the FTL develops it receives the power required to exceed the speed of light by any multiple of the cloud. To traverse a given distance in a given length of time, the original FTL equations supply the rate of cycle variation needed. With an unexpectedly dramatic flourish to special pragmatic man, Breslaw tapped out a set of voyage requirements. If you have to get to near factory in 2 standard days, you can now. Instead of taking, how long? 4 weeks. The answer absently, more intent on following the printing of the profoundly interesting equation. 4 weeks then. Well, you can see the advantages. And then Helga understood what necessitated a new mission to Beta Cortex. One could scarcely try to release that kind of energy within solar system without knowing the subjective and objective effects. What disadvantages have you observed, he asked. Are these computations based on experiment or sheer theory? Doubt and concern dampened Breslaw's ardor. We have tested the CDM's resource, cycle variant. We took every possible precaution, used a very low cyclage rate. It was impossible, he said to Jameson, to keep the experimental vessel in the range of the testing instrumentation. The vehicle was manned or DB. Manned. Breslaw's answer was just barely audible. The effect of such acceleration on the personnel was fatal? Well, not that we know of. Breslaw glanced sharply at Riley, who had been talking in a low voice to Parallon. Before Helga could turn off the audio, the two separated, Riley joining Daberon on the couch, leaving Parallon alone opposite them. Hal's face was inscrutably polite, his eyes guarded. Well, why don't you know? The vessel hasn't returned. The estimated time of arrival is 9 years standard. It has been sighted returning on normal drive. Our last intercepted communication indicated we must proceed with immense caution with the use of the power ship. Evidently, I'd also hazard a heavy hand was on the CD ship to get that far in comm range. You should have used the BB ship with no tribal brand to cut up the test run. There was also a suggestion that they may have misused the bridge to Corvai data. Breslaw went on, nodding thoughtfully at her observation. You can easily extrapolate the destructive potential of the CD packet. We must be sure that we have not perverted the data and unleashed uncontrollable or unstable emissions that might have had cosmic repercussions. Breslaw looked toward her, both worried and hopeful. So, this does remind me of a game that I have played where you can find the alien equivalent of Fortran. And some of them are perfectly happy to give you blueprints for very powerful devices that you don't know what they do until you put them together. And people have rightfully pointed out in your universe that this could be a very big explosive that will take out stars. Yeah, you're always careful when strangers give you data. That'd be some pile to put the rods in, having used, although she hoped they wouldn't have to get that record. Intergalactic travel. The Tiff ship flung 9 years away from known space. First, I am gratified by the confidence you have in me, gentlemen, he said after a long moment. Although I cannot help wondering if you selected me because being paid off, in theory that is, I am therefore the most expendable, constituting no embarrassing debit loss on the record. Only Parallon appreciated her levity and laughed with uninhibited delight. Your facetious attitude is ill-timed, Helga, Riley remonstrated. You are the least expendable of our ship personnel. I fail to see Parallon the humor in such an outrageous suggestion. There was no mistaking the anger behind his reply. On that case, Helga said, you're a low species of extortionist. What? Riley bellowed, diverted from Maya. You know perfectly well, Chief Riley, that I'd want to possess such a drive once I knew of its existence. I'd certainly want to remain in Central World service to get it. Caroline sobered instantly, staring at her. That's the game, isn't it? Helva demanded, her voice cold because she was talking to Caroline, and he knew it now. He kept staring at her, the muscles in his jaw twitching. Frankly, yes, Riley answered when it was obvious Caroline would not. And there's not much time for you to decide. How so? Some subtle change in Riley's face rised to bitter anger. So this was how Central World treated their BB ship. She should have listened to Double M's friend. Yeah, I gotta remember the acronym is SPRIN, because otherwise I'm gonna say sperm for the entire video. She should have got in touch with Broyer. Let Central World fight its own fire. Central World is bound by Federation directives, however. Directives controlled and promulgated by the people of this civilized galaxy. There is no latitude on some of its systems. You are under your original obligation to Central World until those additional bonuses come through from the Federation. After that, an entirely different set of directives controls the kind of authority, the type of contract, the wording, and the restrictions of the clauses, payments, and prerogatives of any further dealings you have with a BB ship. If we operated any other way, however, Riley went on implacably, we would have the humanity's guardians scanning our troops, sitting on our shoulders, hindering our operations. You have proved to me an extremely capable contactee. The service needs you. Our need has, so far, been to your benefit. You have been given extraordinary opportunities to achieve payoff early in your career. We felt you might consider that at this time, what we are offering you the chance is to be the first BB ship with a fully realized FTL drive. Service status guarantees citizenship. If apologies are in order, I kindly accept them. I did not realize that contract terms changed after payoff. Okay. Alright, sorry, Dad. Please crush, finish. However, you can scarcely blame me for wanting to understand all of the factors involved in what has only been a discussion pending confirmation of those rewards. Well, inherent in Commander Breslav's explanation is a possibility that I could blow myself into a nova. I protest, Breslav jumped to his feet. You can see the theory is valid. It has been tested, and scared you into taking the precaution of checking data against perversion of data. I like my skin, gentlemen. I prefer it in one piece. Yes, shell is solid titanium, Breslav said heatedly, impervious to the full power of an exploding sun in my guts. Helva snapped. I've already suffered from the heat of a nova, Breslav, and this solid titanium shell of mine has proved to be no sanctuary against injury, nor the perversions of man. Breslav sank to the couch, utterly deflated. Of the others, only Caroline suffered neither embarrassment nor chagrin. He had jerked his head towards her column at her rebuttal. His lips were set in too bitter a line, even for the simplest supervisor. For a moment his eyes were unguarded, reflecting a physical pain and an expression Helga had seen once before, in the eyes of a dying man. He broke the silence, speaking in a heavy, tired voice. There's been no attempt to mask the danger involved, Helva, and we've tried to make an unwieldy force of restrictions work for you. It would be more advantageous for you to extend the original contract than to enter a completely new one. You can check your files on that if you doubt me. We can amend some of the old clauses. We cannot change any of the new ones. Now, have the courtesy to hear us out, and then a simple yes or no is all that is required. He sounded indifferent to that decision now, and he couldn't understand why. Gabrinon cleared his throat and walked slowly towards her column as if gathering his deceptive thoughts. The projected mission to Beta Corva had multiple purposes, Alpha. everyone needing abilities, talents, and a background that pointed inexorably towards you. I'll explain those that relate to my field activity. I believe that we could condition future observers to withstand the psychological disorientation of the Corviti process. If we had some idea of the change taking place in human psyche that has been retained in the Corviti entity. Yes, species asking for a double portion of your flesh soda, but I have an altruistic reason for asking you to return there. Caroline and I are both positive that if you could return and reassure yourself as to the integration or disintegration of the personalities of Svartren, Kurla, Ser, Shadras, and Anserkolma in their Corviti environment, you might be able to resolve the sense of guilt and failure that resulted from the outcome of the first mission. You are the best qualified, if not the only person capable of recognizing the image. Doberman gave a faint smile at his description. It was apt, however, trying not to admit how the notion of their tone stirred and tempted her. Now, Double Master has volunteered to return, but frankly his psyche profile indicates a deep trauma. I suspect that he would immigrate as well. Very unsettling, I assure you, Hoda said. He didn't like the mental picture of Double Master's body stretched out, uninhabited on a couch. But if Tony Krilla and Shadras were content as Corviti, Hela forced them out of the way. Well, it's obvious we are going to need Corviti help if we are to play with their toys without damaging the entire galaxy. I assume my psychic profile was run through and you feel you can trust me to return. Yes, government answer with prompt answering. Even after the Borealis fence deprivation, I'd hazard the guess that the Corviti experience had to be during that episode. Good of you, Doberman. Here are we now, with some of our experiences. Which brings me to a sordid subject. I assume Admiral Breslaw that the CD factor will be installed in my drive chamber before I undertake the return to Beta Cobra. Yes, that would be the necessity. How else could you assess the application of that data? And the cost of such an installation? Breslaw glanced nervously at Riley. She inclined her head. You can't determine the exact cost. The experimental vessel was rebuilt several times. Shielding is reinforced, structural numbers doubled, a new alloy on the hull. Well, I'd estimate in the neighborhood of 500,000 galactic credits. She'd had the grace to look appalled, Eva noticed. Although, the staggering cost left her relatively unmoved. After all, she'd paid off more than that already. That would be if I contracted immediately. Yes. And about twice if I let the old contract lapse? I expect so. Breslaw closed his shoulders disconsolately, as if he had now abandoned all hope of this project. This kind of pessimism irritated Helva immeasurably. However, if you extend the old contract, we are in a position to flex any conditions that bind a person and your proved abilities, Riley said smoothly. Don't pressure me, Riley. I haven't considered all the angles from my point of view. That was not technically true. She'd made up her mind. She'd made Riley flexible conditions that bound a person of her proved ability until Spin and Double M could hear regulations creaking. Caroline had certainly cooked up a real tight orbit for her, and she bet her next bonus that she knew exactly what an effect on Breslaw's description of what that power source would have had on her. He didn't mispick that one. He'd have seen injustice of enslaving a Nova to her bidding after Ravos Sam had done to Jenny. And she certainly had pointed out that guilt resolution gimmicks had brought Dublin on. Well, she'd show this egotistic self-assured, dominating, Machiavellian invested sheep in a happy world. They were brought her Pauline to an abrupt halt, and she stared down at Caroline. His face was drawn into dark lines of shame and exhaustion. There was no trace on the slumped shoulders of the arrogant manipulator who called her bluff by being ready to walk out before he even started. There was no malicious gleam in the back of the unguarded eyes, apathetically turns to Oliver Collins. You must know you'd won. I'm sure of her interest, and sure of her interest. Was he regretting his machinations? He certainly looked as if he regretted something from somewhere in his ill-starred time. I'm trying to feel sorry for Niall Paralon. You must keep firmly in mind that they wanted her very badly indeed, for some pretty substantial reasons, and that they were going to have to pay for her. I assume that the probability of curve is high in my favor, he broke the silence to ask. Riley nodded. As I mentioned, Dr. Mann said quickly, you are the most likely person to identify the immigrant, because any trace of their previous personality indicates the entity. You don't think they will be? Dr. Mann shrugged. How can one gauge the depth of transfer with a totally alien structure in psychology? As human, I prefer keeping to some vestige of the humanoid remains. I recommend, however, that your initial contact be extremely brief. That is, he amended it differently, if you decide to undertake this mission, under no circumstances would you be asked to jeopardize yourself in the search for others. The primary goal of the mission is to obtain the Koviki evaluation of CV data. Breslau spoke up. I missed my opportunity to be a study impressive. He glanced anxiously at Doberman. He shrugged his acquiescence to the priority. At least he had them now. I would very much like to have that drive feasible, Pepper said. Where on earth is Paralon Prince? Were they hiding something up here? My personal faith in you has been vindicated, Riley explained, his usual joke yourself. But you're going to have to agree to a few stipulations of mine, or there is no point in proceeding further. You've never been unreasonable, Helva, and I do have the authority to stretch a few regulations in your favor. You'd better listen to my conditions before you make any promises, Riley, Helva said dryly. I'm not about to mortgage my soul for 25 years or so, paying off 500,000 credits on the supposition that the CV drive will be vetted by the Koviki, and I'll resolve a few burning traumas in the process. This extension of my old contract will be void if the CV drive is not feasible. You can junk the modifications to my hull. I'll pay for the cost of the ILO coding, and you'll just have to write the rest off as experimental loss. That's what it'll be. There was a hurried conference between Riley and Revlon, with Riley reluctantly giving in to the engineer's decision. Alright. Second, I can use my own judgment on the advisability of contacting human immigrants on Corby, with no penalty for not completing all phases of the planned mission. I think Doberman made that a contingency clear. Third, the matter of a brawn partner. You've certainly proved that you can operate better without a brawn, Riley interrupted her, all cooperation. Paralon made an inarticulate sound in his throat. You had something to say, Supervisor? May I finish? Helva demanded acidly. Paralon, at least, is well aware of my continuous demand for a permanent brawn. I do not use height to operate alone. I detest it. It would be most inadvisable, Doberman systematically. I will not undertake the mission at all without the brawn of my choice, he said, raising her voice above the others. I heartily occur, Riley. This Koviki psyche exchange has tremendous emotional kickback. Paralon and I feel strongly, but when Doberman glanced toward the supervisor for confirmation, he got no response at all and hurriedly continued that it is imperative for Helva to be sustained by a strong empathetic bond as a buffer for the trauma of the experience. The whole discussion can be terminated right now, Riley, if the conditions are not met. They are, as you experts agree, reasonable. Riley acquiesced, but his smile had disappeared. Good. My final condition also hinges on the success of the drive. You have set me 500,000 credits to pay off. Acceptable. However, with the CD utilizing the full potential of the FPL drive, I will be able to get from here to there in no time at all. I'd be working my tail off for you. I hardly think the old scale salary and bonuses would apply to the new vulnerability. Riley began to protest, volubly mentioning the possibility of Breslov's estimate of 500,000 was conservative, but he was willing to accept that fee. Pure extortion, she interrupted him. For that matter, am I expected to absorb the cost of any expensive adjustments that the Corviki might recommend? I've got to consider that too, as well as service to a completely new power source. No, Riley, I'm sure the double M and Spring might very well consider that the old rate of pay will need some adjustments upward to compensate for my increased efficiency. You'll be the fastest thing in the galaxy, Breslau said. Whose side are you on, Breslau? Well, in this case, help us, the engineer replied, unintimidated. I'm only asking for a reasonable one-third increase, surely not excessive to such a loyal employee of Central World. I'm sure you'll contrive to get your money's worth out of me if I don't if I know how you operate. How I operate? Riley swung around to glare pointedly at Paralon. Paralon operates his section under your orders, Chief, I said, and the dictates of expediency. She was sorry she said it the moment the words were out. Paralon's withdrawal was obvious to others now. He, not the Chief, had initiated this project. He had neatly layered the odds against her refusing it. He couldn't imagine what was wrong with him now. He'd simply dropped out of the arguments, ignored the discussions, was totally immersed in that private struggle. She was also sorry for him. She hated him. She needed him. And she was about to get him. She couldn't beat him, but she could burn him. Do you agree to my conditions, Riley, or don't you? Take them or leave it. Governor and Breslau added their entreaties, and Helva didn't really need to hear Riley's growl of consent to know that she'd had no real alternative either. She'd say this for Riley, he was a good loser. The long minute after he called the revisions in on the base computer and made them official, he stood with his head down, staring at the power transfer. When he came back, his face was impassive. I was warned you might drive us this bargain, Helva. Just a glance at Paralon. I didn't think a BB would ever outguess me, but goddamn right, he added, his eyes flashing. When you say that I'll work your tail off while you just get us into warp ship. Fair enough. Now, Breslau is going to want you at the maintenance dock to lay in the CD drive. You'll retain all standard equipment until the beta core drive bet the new drive. And yes, that's included in your 500 card. Governor has a stack of results and analysis of the beta core trauma for you to print onto your desk. It's as much miles worth as mine, Governor said, trying to draw a silent man into the discussion. We'd had several astute correlations to make from the briefing and psychics of the others on that mission, but I've helped my staff to formulate such preliminary conclusions that we've been able to make. Yes, Paralon's very helpful, Riley muttered, so there's just the proper drawn left to be discussed. Right now, hold it, Helva interrupted him. I thought I made it clear that I will only undertake the Beta 12 mission with the partner of my choice. Whether that man continues after Beta 12 is not an issue. Riley turned to her, his eyes wary. Yes, you'd agreed to that, but you also said you wanted a permanent drawing. I do, but I don't want to go to Beta 12 unless Paralon goes with me. She ignored Riley's explosive protest as the astonished exclamations and congratulations from Doberman and Breslau. Her eyes, her mind, her being were focused on now. The wiry little man turned, his eyes seeking the exact spot on the control panel. The column parallel to her head. This is a bad time for jokes, I know. I'm not joking, my boy. By all that's holy, Paralon, Helva's a genius. By all that's holy, Paralon, Helva's a genius, Doberman cried delightedly, clapping the unresisting shoulder. And she's called your bluff. Indeed she has. You've always boasted you'd outdrawn any man in the service, Riley said, in a dry, cool voice. There had been no vindictiveness in Helva's nomination, but there was in Riley's prompt gratification. A little field work will make you a better supervisor. I think Helva can rectify that fluctuating gravity problem that bugs the test kit, as I assured Helva. And there's always the shock web for added protection. Abruptly they left. Now Paralon remained, troubled and dazed, reacting not at all in any of the ways he could understand. "You've got to be joking, Helga," he said, his voice cracking despite an obvious effort to control himself. "Why? You know more about brawling than anyone in the service. You know about the Corbucci problem, backward and forward, and you undoubtedly researched Breslau's equations thoroughly before." "Of course I did!" And the control was gone. His words tumbled out harsh and bitter. "Do you think I'd let you walk into something I hadn't checked thoroughly? But I rigged this horse, I did. Not Riley, I talked him into it, and Breslau and Dobronon too, once I saw the possibility of hooking you. Well, that was obvious. You didn't have a chance, Helva, because I knew every button to push on you and when. I did. Oh, God help me, I did. You are undoubtedly the most unscrupulous supervisor in the service," he agreed, countering his scathing self-contempt with unruffled humor. "And that wasn't a farthing underhanded trick you just served me." "You're not even listening to me! You stupid tin-plated witch! Can't you understand what I did to you? What I did to you? I made you stay in the service." "No, I elected to stay on my conditions." Niall stared wildly at her, his eyes dark with conflict that was tearing him apart. All arrogance, all self-confidence had been stripped from him. This was too violent a reaction to be finding himself momentarily outmaneuvered. Your conditions? Your conditions? Now there's another real fine example of cosmic justice." He laughed hoarsely at the irony that only he could see. "Maybe you'd better let me in on that joke now. I could use a laugh, even if it's on me." There were tears in his eyes now, and he held his clenched fist rigid against his side. "I rigged all of this, Helva, because I, Niall Paralon, could not let you leave Central World Service. Oh, yes, I put every mission your way that could help you pay off, and when you actually did, I found I couldn't tolerate the prospect. So, I set up all those clever, naughty ploys to keep you in. Only when I saw you acting just as I planned you would, I knew I'd use my clever position for the most despicable act in a long series of clever, shrewd, and despicable manipulation. And I couldn't stop when I'd started. I couldn't even think of a way to get you out of this mess. Then you go, Helva, want me, Paralon, for your brawn." His laugh was a cry of anguish. "It doesn't change my option, Paralon," she said forcefully. She had to override that horrible laughing. "I want you for a brawn as selfishly as you want me in the service, and it would be safer to have you my brawn than my supervisor. There isn't much else for me to do anywhere but stay in Central World," she added in a gentle voice. "You did make it possible for me to stay on my terms, because those farmland well know that I'm the only fit to do this job. I want you as brawn, my Paralon, because you are clever, you are devious, you are despicable, you are unscrupulous, and you are demanding. Because you do know the right buttons to push on me. You're not much on looks and style, but I've read that word. I'll trust you to bring me back out of anything, even Beta Kobai." "Trust me?" It was a scream starting from his gut. His body was shaking with effort. "Why, you fool, you freak, you half-grown wirehead, fool of a romantic tin-ass. You trust me? Don't you believe? Don't you realize that I know every single thing that there is to know about you? I've even had chromosomal extract made, so I'd know what you look like. And I know the release sables that have been coded into you not 7 days ago. Trust me, I'm the last person you can trust. Choose me as a broad God!" Helva was staggered by this disclosure. Caroline had a brawn fixation on her. She wanted to sing hallelujahs. She wanted to scream with rage. She was exalted and full of panic, and she knew what she had to do. She'd better. A brawn's irrational revenge to the face of his brain partner. was scarcely uncommon when there was a deep emotional attachment between partners. It was usually started by the difficulty of removing the acid channel. If Mal had those guarded syllables, he had to deal with its fixation one way or the other. "That's why I can't be a Braun, Helba," Mal said in a broken voice. "And don't give me that ass warble about fixations are common and cured. I know the release syllables, and one day it would be too much for Nile boy. I'd have to open that coffin they've sealed you in. I'd have to look at your beautiful face, touch that God's bloodless smile, and hold you." He moved, fighting the drive of his body every inch, until he was eagle-spread against the column, his cheek pressed against the cold metal, his fingertips white with the effort to penetrate the unyielding surface. One hand slipped slowly towards the asset channel, yet his face was oddly clear, serene, almost happy. His eyes closed as if he already held her against him. "Well then, say the syllables," she cried passionately. "Open the panel, breach the shell, stare at my face, hold my twisted body. It would be better for me to die at your hands than remain inviolate without you." With an inarticulate cry, he jumped back as if the metal had burned him. His face was contorted in a terrible grimace. "You didn't need them then, now you never will," she said, keeping her voice gentle and soothing, suppressing the unexpected longing that threatened to rob her of her sanity. "Oh, God, no! Helba, no!" He whirled, running to the lock, jamming down the controls on the lift. He jumped from it before he reached ground level and disappeared into the tower. And I can only wait, Heather thought bitterly. He's got to make this decision himself. He's got to want to come back to me because he's sure he can trust himself. My imperfect trust in him is irrelevant. He must be the initiator, the manipulator, the schemer. Why didn't I slam the lock shut? Why didn't I keep him here until he realized that's all he got right now? That the critical moment had come and gone. All his defenses had been down. He'll never be that vulnerable. He'll never, either with himself or with me. He's got to see that. When he's got to see that when he got himself back in the control. Surely he'll be back soon. All arrogance, jaunty, swaggering self-assurance. If the fixation is so deep, he'll have to come back. He couldn't stay away. Only a mile power line could. If one mile power line decided that that's what he had to do. He's that kind of man. He can rationalize all the deceitful, collusive, unprincipled things he does, dismiss them from his mind once they've accomplished their purpose. But set him up against the pressure of his deepest integrity, touch him in the core of reluctant goodness and honesty, and Mal Caroline could make the noble gesture, the uncharacteristic sacrificial act, that foul them up both for the rest, foul them both up for the rest of their lives. Should she call Riley? He'd act instantly, and on what now had gone into the tower, to think, consider, decide, she had really hoped to come back. After what they'd put Riley through, he'd better not roar him unnecessarily, particularly against Nile. And Hubble sat again, waiting with her lock wide open, and the rest of the ground level in the door. And I think that is a good stopping point. At least for this evening. Because it is over an hour, and you have more important things to do than to listen to me. So, remember, if people can love you without knowing you, if people can hate you without knowing you, God, that breaks it down. If people can hate you without knowing you, then I can love you for exactly the same reason. So, get some rest, and do your best. And you'll see me. Stay safe. Good.